You know what? You could change this into a conversation at dinner time.
I love talking about it.
I thought the event was fantastic.
I thought it was wonderful.
That's the thing that I heard over and over tonight.
Just the whole idea of looking at life as a continuum, and that end of life is a very important aspect. It's just as important as beginning of life.
I'm really curious to see what concerns the community has and questions the community has about hospice care.
I hope to come back richer, more enhanced. I'm always looking for ways to improve the way that I manage, but also the way that I care for patients.
Good evening.
It's a real pleasure to have worked with Andrea Schreeman over the last year. She formed a big committee, a big group that put this together. So again, it's a pleasure to welcome her as the producer of the Die movie.
Thank you, Dave. When I first started thinking about the topic for the movie, it was around 2008. My mother had just had her first stroke. And then in 2010, she had a second stroke, and that was the year that I actually met with my partner and started working on the screenplay. So as you can hear, writing this film has been a very personal journey.
We'll go ahead and get started as I'll introduce our panel who will be going through the program this evening. And I hope that once every one of you leaves this evening that you are better for being here tonight and that you have found some sense of healing. Have you had the conversation with the individual responsible for making your end-of-life decisions, yes or no? And we heard Nathan just talking about how important that is, because if you haven't had that conversation with the person, then it can lead to some confusion later on.
If you don't pick someone, the law will pick someone for you. And the pecking order is spouse, and then your adult children, and then your parents if they happen to be living, and then your siblings. And then we find any blood relative if we can't find any of those. So think about your family, and you might be in a family where you wouldn't want those folks to be decision makers. So,
even though there can be a pecking order, and even though there are clear people that people may want to have in the decision-making process, you want to try to avoid conflicts by including as many people in that discussion so that everybody knows who the decider is, but everybody's in agreement.
There are some conversations that are much more difficult than that, and that is a conversation that we have to moderate in a family who's making a decision around a loved one in crisis, and they have no idea what their loved one would have wanted. Those are difficult conversations. Conversely, I've had interactions with families who have an incredible sense of peace, even in the midst of grief and sadness over what's happening to their loved one, who are making a decision that they have confidence their loved one would have wanted.
Have you ever had a loved one use hospice services?
The care you receive in hospice is so nurturing, and the freedom actually from aggressive medical treatment that sometimes is debilitating in itself provides some fertile ground for, if not longer life, having the life that you have left be very rich and meaningful. And I think that's the conversation, again, that precedes all others, is how do I want the end of my life to be if in fact I have some control over that.
Sometimes my people ask me, would you go with me to the doctor's office? And I said, sure. If your clergy person is there, people feel like God is there, just their psyche. Those of us who are called by God to do what we do, we will walk with you, and we will have those hard conversations, and we will bring that hope in the room, and we will be objective, and we will be the extra ear listening. Because you have to have extra ears when doctors talk.
Right. Of course.
to listen, right. and interpret.
Sometimes the timing just doesn't feel right. You know, so-and-so was just released from the hospital. We're in a good place. Why we want to talk about death and dying and disability? It's just not the right thing. Or, you know, mom's birthday is 3 weeks from now. I don't want to depress her by having her think about death now that she's about to have her birthday. One of the reasons that the National Healthcare Decisions Day on April 16 exists is to try and provide just a totally objective kind of catalyst day. You mark your calendar and you say, you know what, all across the country, Families are sitting down at a dining room table or in their living rooms, and they're going to do this because it's the day that's been selected. It's not because it's close to somebody's birthday or the discharge from a hospital. It's just a time to do it.
These conversations are crucial. Ira Bayek says, I have an advance directive not because I have a chronic illness. I have an advance directive because I have a family. So it shouldn't wait until we're diagnosed with something that might lead to our death. It should occur at any point in time as we want to engage our families and help them to make those decisions.
Seeing the panel discussion, did it move you to any sorts of action?
Yes, it did, because I don't have an advance directive, so. And it does make you realize that it doesn't really matter how old you are, and it's actually probably better to do it while you're still healthy.
I also appreciated hearing from the gentleman from Richmond who shared about the National Healthcare Decision Day of April 16th, which is something that I hope to take back to my family and even share in our church.
The most important thing was to have the conversation. To have the conversation with people who you know you can count on to carry your wishes out.
I'm really excited about the Advanced Care Healthcare Day he was talking about, because I have a book club, I have a church, my father-in-law's in Kiwanis, I'm like, I can do this. That's what I try to teach when I have my patients and their families come in. I say, now that you've done this with your parents, you go home and do this with your kids so that they won't have to do it with you.
People need to take this back to their families, to their churches, to their synagogues, or wherever they're going, and continue the conversation.